Well, Israel has been using warplanes to target key facilities, top generals, and scientists across Iran. And it says it's gained air superiority from the west of Iran all the way to the capital. Israel says its efforts are focused on disabling Tehran's nuclear program. Iranian officials say 78 people were killed and more than 300 others wounded in the Israeli attacks. We can now speak to Barbara Slavin. She's a distinguished fellow at the Stimson Center in Washington, and she also wrote a book about the U.S.-Iranian conflict. Welcome to DW. The U.S. has been saying it wasn't involved in Israel's attacks on Iran's nuclear sites, but Tehran is accusing Washington of being complicit. What role is the United States playing in this current escalation?
First of all, thank you for having me. It's clear that President Trump gave Bibi Netanyahu permission to carry out these strikes. Now, those of us who've been following this issue for a very long time know that Netanyahu has been wanting to bomb Iran's nuclear installations for more than a decade, and that he has seen Iran as an existential threat to Israel. Of course, Israel doesn't admit that it has its own nuclear arsenal. It's the only state in the Middle East that has nuclear weapons. Nevertheless, the Israelis have been very frightened at the prospect that Iran could develop weapons. So what happened, I think, is that Netanyahu basically twisted Trump's arm. President Trump had given 2 months for negotiations to take place to try to reach an agreement. 2 months had passed. The Iranians had not accepted a U.S. proposal, which demanded that they give up their entire uranium enrichment program, something that Iran has never been willing to do. And so Netanyahu said, now is the time to exercise military pressure. And Trump said, okay. I think, Trump may think that this will actually increase pressure on Iran to reach a diplomatic solution. But that remains to be seen. And the response we've seen so far is that Iran has retaliated and rather successfully, given Israel's vaunted missile defenses.
Well, we know, of course, that the U.S. is Israel's closest ally, and Tehran has already threatened to attack U.S. bases in the Middle East. So can the Trump administration avoid being drawn into this conflict?
Well, I think so far the U.S. has not participated in any of the attacks on Iran. The U.S. is helping Israel defend itself against some of these Iranian retaliatory strikes. If the U.S. were to join with Israel in bombing Iran, to go after some of the deeply buried targets like Fordo, which is a major enrichment site, then I think Iran would, yes, retaliate against U.S. forces in the region, civilian installations, and so on. But so far, the U.S. is walking a fine line here. And of course, Iran does not want to get the United States involved. As we speak, the Israelis are bombing an Iranian natural gas facility called South Pars, an offshore field that Iran shares with Qatar. So the last thing that Iran wants is to have the world's most powerful military join Israel in these strikes. But the damage that's being done is real. The lives that are being lost are real. And I do hope the U.S. will try to stop this. Another new development is that Trump has apparently spoken with Vladimir Putin and asked him to try to intervene with the Israelis and the Iranians and try to bring an end to this.
Well, there are many who are concerned that this could all just be the start of a very long war. Do you see any diplomatic or strategic options left to prevent this? What would be your advice?
Well, I would advise both sides to accept a ceasefire. I think they've done enough damage and return to negotiations. There were supposed to be talks in Oman on Sunday. Those have now been canceled. But I think it's very important that talks resume and that the United States comes to Iran with a proposal that is face-saving for the Iranians. Now, they've already sustained a lot of damage to their uranium enrichment program. So it's frankly less of a risk for the United States to agree that they can have a small civilian program, as was the case under the nuclear deal that Trump quit in 2018. But diplomacy is the only way to resolve this. If this fight continues, the Iranians will try to find some way to build nuclear weapons, which is something they have not done in all the years. And it's more than, my God, since 1957, that's when the United States and Iran signed their first nuclear accord under the Shah. In all that time, Iran has not developed nuclear weapons. But my fear, and the fear of many nonproliferation experts, is that Israeli attacks will incentivize Iran to build bombs, because how else can Iran protect itself against future such attacks? And it's not just the nuclear installations that have been hit, military installations have been hit, and Israel has assassinated the entire top military leadership of Iran, which is a particular Israeli tactic, one that we saw them use also in Lebanon and, of course, in Gaza. And when you kill these people, who are you supposed to negotiate with?
That was Barbara Slavin from the Stimson Center in Washington. Thank you so much for all of your insights. We appreciate it.